We often believe that we need absolute clarity before we can take the first step. We sit and think, analyze every angle, consider every possible outcome, and imagine all the ways it could go wrong. We spend hours, days, or even months waiting for a perfect plan to fall into place before taking action. But the truth is, clarity is not something you find before you start. Clarity is something you gain because you start. Action creates clarity. That statement, though simple, holds incredible power. When you move, when you make a decision, when you test an idea, even in its rawest, most imperfect form, the world starts to respond. You get feedback. You learn. You discover things you never could have known by simply sitting and thinking. The fog begins to lift not when you plan the perfect route, but when you take that first step forward. Movement reveals what stillness never will. Think about how often overthinking paralyzes us. You want to start a business, but you're not sure if your idea is good enough. You want to change careers, but you're afraid it might be the wrong move. You want to speak up, but you worry about what others might think. So you wait. You gather information. You make pros and cons lists. You watch others do what you wish you were doing. But nothing changes. The clarity you're looking for never arrives because it doesn't exist in the realm of thought. It lives in the realm of action. Imagine a person trying to learn to swim by reading books about swimming. They could study every stroke, every breathing technique, every survival tip. They could memorize every piece of theory. But until they step into the water, they don't really know how to swim. Only in the water can they feel the resistance, sense the buoyancy, learn the rhythm. The same applies to life. You can't think your way into mastery. You must do. Action is messy. It's uncomfortable. It's full of missteps and awkward moments. But it's the only way forward. Clarity comes not from thinking more, but from doing more. When you act, you learn what works and what doesn't. You realize what matters and what was just noise. You uncover new paths and solutions that you never could have imagined while sitting still. This is why the most successful people in the world aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who took action. They weren't paralyzed by overthinking. They moved, they failed, they adjusted, and they grew. They trusted that clarity would meet them along the journey, not at the starting line. Taking action also shifts your mental state. When you overthink, your mind becomes your prison. You replay the same thoughts over and over, building fear and self-doubt. But when you act, you shift from being a passive observer of your life to an active participant. You stop reacting and start creating. You begin to feel capable. You start to trust yourself more. Every small action is a signal to your brain that you are capable of handling challenges, that you don't need to have it all figured out to begin. That movement is progress, even if it's imperfect, and those small signals build confidence. Confidence is not born from endless thinking. It's built through action and experience. Sometimes we wait for clarity as a form of self-protection. We tell ourselves, "I'm not ready yet," or "I just need a little more time," when, in reality, we're afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of the unknown. But waiting doesn't eliminate fear. It feeds it. Fear grows stronger in silence and in action. The longer you wait, the louder it gets. But when you act, you start to silence that fear. You face it head on, and you prove to yourself that you can handle it. We also underestimate how powerful even the smallest actions can be. You don't need to make a huge leap to create clarity. You just need to move. Write the first page. Make the first phone call. Go to the first class. Apply for that job. Have that difficult conversation. Every action gives you more information. It shows you what your next move could be. You don't need a map of the entire journey. You just need the courage to take the next step. And when you act, you open yourself up to opportunities. You meet people you wouldn't have met otherwise. You gain experiences you couldn't have predicted. You attract momentum. Momentum is a powerful force. Once you start, it becomes easier to keep going. One step leads to the next. One small win builds into a bigger one. Before you know it, you've made progress that thinking alone could never have achieved. There is also a hidden cost to waiting. Every moment you spend overthinking is a moment lost. Time keeps moving whether you act or not. The opportunity you're waiting to feel ready for may not wait for you. The perfect conditions may never come. Life is happening right now, and the only way to participate fully in it is to stop thinking and start doing. You don't need all the answers to begin. You just need to trust the process. Trust that clarity will come with each step. Trust that mistakes are part of learning. Trust that you can figure things out as you go. That mindset changes everything. It frees you from the illusion of perfection. It empowers you to be bold, to be curious, to explore. People often say, I just don't know what I want to do. But many times it's not that they don't know, it's that they haven't tried enough things to find out. How can you know what lights you up if you haven't tested your options? How can you find your passion if you haven't exposed yourself to different experiences? Thinking about it won't give you the answer. Living it will. You may make wrong turns. You may fail. But even failure brings clarity. It teaches you what not to do. It shows you what you truly care about. It sharpens your understanding of who you are. And that clarity is priceless. You don't get that from overthinking. You earn it by showing up again and again, willing to take the next step. No matter how much time you spend planning, you can't predict everything. Life is unpredictable. Conditions will change. Plans will evolve. The only way to stay adaptable is to keep moving. Flexibility comes from experience, not theory. When you act regularly, you become more resilient. You learn how to pivot. You learn how to handle challenges. You gain a deeper sense of trust in your ability to navigate the unknown. Perfection is the enemy of progress. It's a phrase that carries immense weight, especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with curated images, polished presentations, and pressure to perform flawlessly. The desire to be perfect seems noble on the surface. Who wouldn't want to do their best, deliver excellence, and make things right? But when perfection becomes the goal, it often stops us from making any real progress at all. It becomes a wall that blocks us from moving forward, starting, finishing, or even trying. When we strive for perfection, we set impossible standards. Standards that are often vague, ever-changing, and defined by fear rather than purpose. We convince ourselves that if it isn't perfect, it's not worth doing. That if we can't guarantee success, we shouldn't even try. That if it might be criticized, we should hold it back. This mindset paralyzes action. It turns creativity into anxiety. It makes starting feel terrifying and finishing feel impossible. Progress requires movement. It requires action. It requires making mistakes, learning, adjusting, and growing. Perfection demands the opposite: stillness, caution, delay. It tells you to wait until everything is just right, until you're fully ready, until you have every answer and zero risk. But that day rarely comes. The perfect moment, the perfect skill set, the perfect plan. These are illusions. And while you wait for them, you miss real chances to learn and grow. Consider how many great ideas never leave someone's notebook because they're waiting to perfect them. How many writers never publish? How many entrepreneurs never launch? How many artists never share their work? Not because they aren't capable, but because they believe it's not yet good enough. Perfection becomes a cage. It tells you you're not ready, that your work isn't worthy, that your efforts don't count unless they're flawless. And so, you wait. You revise endlessly. You doubt yourself. You stall. Progress, on the other hand, embraces imperfection. It acknowledges that rough drafts, messy starts, and clumsy first steps are part of the process. It knows that improvement comes through doing, not delaying. You don't become great by getting it right the first time. You become great by showing up consistently, learning from your missteps, and refining over time. The path to excellence is paved with imperfection. When we chase progress instead of perfection, we give ourselves permission to grow. We allow ourselves to take risks, to experiment, to fail. Failure is not the opposite of progress. It's an essential part of it. Every mistake teaches you something. Every setback strengthens your understanding. Every time you try, you're building skill, resilience, and experience. That kind of progress is real, tangible, and lasting. Perfectionism also often hides deeper fears. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. We use perfection as a shield, thinking if we can just make things flawless, we'll be safe from criticism or disappointment. But the truth is, no matter how much you polish something, there will always be people who don't like it, flaws you didn't catch and outcomes you didn't expect. Perfection doesn't protect you. It just delays the inevitable and robs you of the lessons you would have gained along the way. The people who make the biggest impact are not the ones who waited until everything was perfect. They are the ones who started messy, learned quickly, and kept going. They understood that progress compounds. Each step builds on the last. Each version gets better. Each attempt moves you closer to your goal. That kind of momentum is powerful, and it's only possible when you let go of perfection. In many cases, striving for perfection actually leads to lower performance. It creates anxiety, burnout, and procrastination. When you hold yourself to unrealistic standards, you often feel like you're failing even when you're doing well. You overthink, second-guess, and waste time on minor details that don't actually matter. This can drain your energy and kill your motivation. Perfectionism doesn't just slow progress, it often reverses it. Choosing progress means choosing to be a beginner. It means embracing the fact that you won't have all the answers, that you'll make mistakes, and that improvement is a journey, not a destination. It means releasing the need to impress and focusing instead on getting better, step by step. Progress asks, what's the next small step I can take today? Perfection asks, how can I do everything flawlessly right now? One question empowers you, the other paralyzes you. Perfection often disguises itself as high standards, but in reality, it's more about fear than excellence. It's about control. It's about trying to avoid vulnerability, rejection, and discomfort. But growth requires discomfort. It requires you to stretch beyond your current capabilities, to risk failure in pursuit of something greater. That's why progress matters more. Because progress honors the process. It values movement over stagnation, learning over image, and evolution over ego. Even in creative fields, perfection can destroy potential. Artists who wait for the perfect moment to paint may never start. Musicians who strive for a perfect performance may never release their work. Creators who are afraid of flaws may never share their voice, but when you prioritize progress, you give yourself permission to be real, to show up with your imperfections, to evolve publicly, to improve through action. And that authenticity resonates far more than perfection ever could. In relationships, perfection can be just as damaging. Expecting yourself or others to be perfect leads to disappointment, frustration, and resentment. Real connection happens when you allow for flaws, misunderstandings, and growth. Progress in a relationship means learning how to communicate better, how to forgive, how to adapt, not achieving some idealized version of harmony. The same applies to self-love. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to achieve everything to be proud of yourself. Your worth is not defined by flawlessness. It's defined by your willingness to keep moving forward. In education and career, perfection often creates unnecessary pressure. Students who aim for perfect grades may avoid taking challenging courses. Professionals who fear imperfection may avoid pursuing promotions, starting businesses, or switching careers. But those who focus on progress are willing to take on challenges, knowing that growth is more valuable than perfection. They become better thinkers, better problem solvers, and ultimately, more successful. Perfection can also lead to stagnation in teams and organizations. If leaders demand perfection, employees may stop taking risks. Innovation slows down. Creativity is stifled. But when leaders value progress, they encourage experimentation, reward learning, and build a culture of continuous improvement. Progress is not about getting everything right. It's about getting better together. The mindset shift from perfection to progress changes everything. It shifts your focus from outcomes to effort, from control to curiosity, from fear to courage. It helps you start sooner, move faster, and learn more. It teaches you that showing up consistently is more powerful than showing up perfectly. That done is better than perfect. That a flawed attempt is far better than no attempt at all. Perfection tells you that you're never enough. Progress reminds you that every step counts. Perfection wants to impress. Progress wants to improve. Perfection is rooted in fear. Progress is rooted in courage. When you choose progress, you don't wait for the ideal conditions. You create them. You don't need permission to begin, you just begin. You stop measuring yourself against impossible standards and start measuring your growth, your effort, your resilience. Start before you feel ready. It sounds counterintuitive, maybe even reckless. We're taught from a young age to be prepared, to wait until we have all the tools, all the knowledge, all the confidence. But the truth is, that moment of complete readiness rarely comes. Most people never feel truly ready. They wait for a sign, for certainty, for a perfect plan, and in the process, they miss their opportunity. The difference between those who move forward and those who stay stuck isn't always skill, resources, or talent. It's often the willingness to begin without feeling completely ready. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop waiting and start acting. You begin to realize that readiness isn't something you have before you start. It's something you build along the way. The idea that you need to be fully prepared is a myth. Growth comes from doing, not from waiting. When you step into something new, whether it's a job, a relationship, a project, or a dream, you will never have every answer. But you don't need to. You need only enough courage to take the first step. The hesitation we feel when starting something is natural. It's our brain trying to protect us from discomfort and uncertainty. We want to know that we won't fail, that we won't be embarrassed, that things will go smoothly. But progress is born from uncertainty. The most meaningful accomplishments in life are usually the ones we weren't quite ready for. They pushed us. They challenged us. They made us grow in ways we couldn't have predicted. If you wait to feel ready, you might never start. Think about how many times in life you've stepped into something unsure. Maybe it was your first day at school, your first job, your first time speaking in front of a group. Were you ready? Probably not. But you did it. And because you did, you learned. You adapted. You became more prepared through action than you ever could have through thinking alone. Experience is the best teacher, and experience only comes from doing. Perfectionism often hides behind the idea of readiness. We tell ourselves we're just being careful, just waiting until things are right, but deep down it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. Starting before you feel ready is an act of courage. It's a statement that says, I might not have it all figured out, but I believe in my ability to figure it out along the way. That belief is more powerful than any plan. That mindset builds resilience and resourcefulness, two traits that matter far more than being perfectly prepared. Every expert once began as a beginner. Every successful person started from a place of uncertainty. They weren't born ready, while they became ready through practice, persistence, and repetition. The only difference between them and someone who never starts is that they chose to begin anyway. Starting before you feel ready is not about recklessness. It's about trusting yourself enough to grow into the role, the dream, or the responsibility you desire. We often overestimate the cost of failing and underestimate the cost of waiting. Failure teaches. Waiting wastes. Every day you hesitate is a day you're not learning, not improving, not moving closer to your goals. The discomfort of starting is temporary. The regret of never starting can last a lifetime. Action builds momentum. When you begin, even if it's awkward, even if it's messy, you break the inertia, you get feedback, you gain insight. You start to see what works and what doesn't. That's how clarity is formed. Not from standing still, but from taking that uncertain first step. Confidence is not something you need in order to start. It's something you develop because you start. Each time you take action, you collect evidence that you're capable. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize you can handle discomfort, figure things out, and adapt. That trust compounds over time, becoming true confidence. But it begins with a willingness to show up imperfectly. There's a kind of magic in starting. It opens doors. It attracts opportunities. It puts you in motion, and motion creates progress. The people who make the biggest impact in the world don't always have the best ideas or the most experience, and they simply dared to begin. They took the leap when it felt too early, and they learned how to fly on the way down. They built the plane as they flew it. And in doing so, they created momentum that no amount of preparation could have given them. Every great journey begins with a single decision to move. It doesn't require certainty, just courage. Starting before you feel ready means trusting that you'll grow into your goals, that you'll become who you need to be through the process of pursuit. That action is the catalyst for transformation. It's not about knowing every step of the journey. It's about being bold enough to take the first one. This mindset isn't just for big life decisions. It applies to everyday choices. Starting a workout routine, learning a new skill, launching a small project, speaking up in a meeting. In each of these moments, you might not feel ready. You might doubt yourself. But if you wait until you feel 100% prepared, you'll stay stuck. Start with what you have. Do what you can. Let the process refine you. There's a quiet strength in saying, I'll start now and figure it out as I go. That's how innovation happens. That's how creativity is unleashed. That's how leaders are made. They move first and learn fast. They don't wait for permission or perfection. They know that doing creates more progress than planning ever could. They understand that feeling ready is a result, not a requirement. People often look back and realize that the moments that changed their lives the most were the ones where they acted before they were fully ready. They said yes to the job, the opportunity, the challenge, even though it scared them. And it was through that decision that they became more prepared, more capable, more confident. That's the paradox of readiness. It comes from action, not before it. The mind loves certainty, but life is built on risk. Every worthwhile pursuit carries some level of uncertainty. The question is not whether you feel ready, but whether you're willing to begin anyway. Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to risk imperfection? Are you willing to step into the unknown with faith that you will grow, adapt, and succeed over time? The truth is, readiness is a moving target. The more you grow, the higher the bar goes. If you always wait to feel fully ready, you'll be chasing a horizon that keeps shifting. The real breakthrough comes when you stop chasing readiness and start embracing movement. When you value progress over perfection. When you let action be your teacher instead of hesitation. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. Doubt grows in silence. Fear expands in stillness. But movement shrinks fear. Action quiets doubt. The moment you begin, even with shaky hands or uncertain steps, you reclaim your power. You stop letting fear make your decisions. You take control of your story. You begin to create your future one imperfect step at a time.